स्वाध्याय टीवी। डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब आंबेडकर ओपन यूनिवर्सिटी।
Namaskar. Welcome again in the series of lecture regarding the cost accounting, which we are discussed earlier the part of introduction of a cost accounting, and in the last sessions we discussed the last part of a cost accounting introduction. Today I am introducing a new point, a new chapter, that is job and batch costing. Job and batch costing itself, it's explained that the work related to a job work or maybe a specific batch has been designed for the particular manufacturer to manufacturing the goods. For that, if they are willing to know that which type of cost structure has to be designed for the specific job work or a batch work, and how the cost elements has to be inputs in this particular structure, and how the cost structure and design as per the norms and as per the requirements of the unit, which has to be taken a help from the objective of the business or a need of the organization, and the amount of profitability has to be identified. For that, they design a job cost work or a batch cost work. Here there are many type of industries, and many type of industries have a different type of business objectives also. The objectives may be differ on business to business and organization to organization. In that sense, they may be having a different type of structure to identify their cost of the manufacturing of a product. So, how the manufacturing of the product have some inputs, and how the cost structures to be designed specifically for the respected job work. Maybe the one organization have a many type of job works doing in their organization. It does not mean that they have a only single job work or maybe a single batch. It means that the job work would be changed according to the job profile or maybe the requirement of the work. So, the job work has to be identified first. On the basis of the job work, the cost structure may be differ. Let us see which are the topics to be discussed in this particular unit, in the particular chapter. We are supposed to discuss in this particular unit, that is introduction, meaning and definitions, then the characteristics of a job work, then importance of a job costing, requisites of a job costing, then accumulation of a job and batch costing, as well as the job cost sheet, and at last batch costing. So, these are the topics which we are going to discuss. Let us begin with the introduction. That the introduction of the job costing is the job work may be changed and differ according to the requirement of a job work. So, it means that the elements of cost are accumulated separately for each job or work order undertaken by an organization. It means that which are the elements as affected to the particular job work, may be a material, labor, overheads. In that sense, whichever the direct expenditures are incurred for the specific job work has to be identified and recorded on the basis of a job cost structure. Now, there are, as said, many industries and many type of businesses which needs a different type of production process. So, it means that their production process may be differ, their production process may not be same, but according to their production process, they need to identify how the elements of cost has to be designed for the respected job work, and it would be recorded in the respected part of structure. Now, here therefore, there are different methods to identify, to evaluate the cost part, and for that the production cost in a different industries may be identified in a different way. So, now we need to identify how the production cost has to be changed, how the production cost has been incurred in the respected business, and which part of elements to be affected to the particular job work, which may be changed according to the job nature or according to the job identification. Now, here It does not mean that there are many industries, they maybe have a different type of job structure or job identification, but it does not mean that they have a different type of job qualities also. So, it means that the basic fundamentals principles to ascertain the production cost in a different type of industries is remains same only. Why? Because of ultimately they need to identify the job cost, they need to identify the total amount of cost work and the total amount of cost of the respected job. It may be a differ because of the structure may be changed or maybe identification may be changed, but it does not mean that the elements of cost has been changed. So, this is what the part of the introduction is concerned. Now, as I already said that the amount of the change, the main characteristic of job work is to identify the manufacturer never actually manufacturing the goods to maintain their stock or maybe to meet their future demands. Why? Because of the main object behind of the job work is to identify the person who has actually tried to get some work outsourcing and doing a work from others. So, it means that they are doing a work for others at the time of their requirements. So, whenever they offer the work and whenever they are actually identified the work, it depends on the situation of the people who wanted to do a work from you. So, now the job work people or a manufacturer who are not actually manufacturing a goods for themselves, but they are manufacturing the goods on the basis of the others demand, on the basis of the others requirements. So, on the basis of their requirement and their situations, the cost work and the job work has to be identified. Now, here so which we actually identified the situation, in that case the main purpose of the job work is to identify the job work or a job cost, what amount of cost has been incurred in the particular job, to identify or to determine the profit or loss of the each job. As I already mentioned earlier, maybe the manufacturer has not been doing a job, only single job, he may be identified a number of jobs. So, the each job have a different type of cost or a different type of structure. So, the job main object behind to design of this job work is to evaluate what amount of profit or loss has incurred in each job. So, for that what they have to do it? They have to identify that the what amount of elements of cost has been incurred on the respected job work. Maybe there are certain direct expenditures or indirect expenditures also. The direct expenditures are incurred is always respected for the particular job only, but indirect expenditures may be incurred for a whole business. So, in that sense they need to identify the which amount of proportionate indirect expenses are incurred for the respected job, and for that they need to apply the overhead recovery rates method, and then on the basis of the overhead recovery rates method, the certain amount of indirect expenditures will be allocated to the respected job and identified the total cost of the respected job work, and at the end they need to identify the amount of profitability of the particular job. In short, the job work or a job cost system has to be designed to identify how much amount of the cost of the production has been incurred on a respected process with the adding of different elements of cost as identified for the respected job. So, in short, this is a part of the cost structure design of the respected job costing. Moving to the next point, and that is the importance of a job costing. What are the importance of job costing? Why the actually job costing method is required? The job cost system is useful in the industry whenever the manufacturing activities are done. So, here the manufacturing activities, in that sense the service, in the service sector or in a service costing service part, maybe the job cost or a job work may not be identified. So, in a manufacturing activities or in a manufacturing unit, job work is majorly required. So, in that sense the production planning and production order has to be identified, and it is to be prepared in such a way that job costing can be easily calculated and conveniently you can design your whole job cost structure. So, you can identified which are the elements of cost, which are the direct expenses and indirect expenses, how much production process has been required for that, how much time would be taken to do this particular job work, what type of material has to be required for the particular job work, how many laborers are actually laborers are going to work on that particular work and converted that raw material into a finished products. So in that sense, the whole structure has to be designed in such a way that the complete process work very smoothly and very decently. Moving to the next point, that is, it is unable to prepare the what type of job card and job tickets which has to be very useful to ascertain the cost of material, labor and overheads. So here on the basis of a job card and job tickets, we will need to identify the how much amount of material has been utilized for the respected job, how much actually time has been consumed by the respected laborers to convert the raw material into a finished products, how much overheads actually incurred for the respected products. Take an example. Suppose in the organization there are simultaneously 2 or 3 jobs are actually going on, job 1, job 2, job 3. Now here the job 1 is actually manufacturing some different product, job 2 is also manufacturing a different part of product, or job 3 is also manufacturing a different part of product. So all the 3 jobs has required a different material. So on the basis of a job ticket or job card, they identified the how much amount of material has been utilized for the respected job. That's a one thing. Now the second important thing is the what amount of time consuming or a time required for the respected job. So here the laborers who are working on the machines or maybe on the respected job for converting a raw material into a finished products, the how much time they put or how much time they consume to convert this raw material into a finished products. So on the basis of a job tickets or a time tickets, it would be identified that the what time has been actually inputs by the laborers to convert the raw material into a finished products. Then the overheads, as I already mentioned, the overheads may be actually incurred for a whole unit. So it is not actually incurred for the respected job 1 or 2 or 3, it may be incurred for all the 3 jobs. Maybe if the organization paid a rent or maybe organization actually paid a insurance premium for a whole building or maybe for the machineries, in that case they need to identify the what amount of proportionate expenses incurred for the respected job. So this is the way to actually through the job card or a job ticket, it would be identified that the what amount of material expenditures incurred, labor expenditures are incurred, or in the case of the amount of overheads. Another important part of the job work is to evaluate the amount of profitability. So through the job work or a job costing, job workers or a manufacturer willing to identify that the what amount of costing has been incurred for the respected job. As I already mentioned earlier, it depends on a job work or depends on a job situations or a nature of a job. It does not mean that each job have a same type of costing, maybe they have a different cost structure or a different costing also. So maybe the profitability rates and the profitability is also differ. So they need to identify the what amount of a profit or loss has been incurred on a respected job. This is the main important part to evaluate a job costing. So this is the way the profit and loss can be identified through the job costing, and the amount of respected profit to be added into the particular job work, and the selling price or an invoice price has to be designed. So this is the way the importance of job costing is identified. Moving to the next point, and that is the requisites of a job costing. The few requisites of a job costings are very required. The requisites of a job costing would be helpful to design a job work in a systematic way. How? Let's discuss the requisites of a job costing. The first point is production control. How the organization can control the production. See here, the first of all, whenever the organization received a job work from their customers, they just identified that which type of job work they are going to do it, and which type of manufacturing process they are going to do it. So on the basis of their production process or the requirement of the material, they identified the list of materials which are required for the particular job work, and on the basis of that they put the requisitions of materials to the store department, and actually they told to the store department to be prepared for the such type of materials will be required in the coming days. So in that sense the production control would be identified. So now the production on the basis of the production control, they put the respected requisitions for the respected material, and they mentioned very clearly and very specifically that how much amount of quantity of the material has been required for the respected job work. Now, on the basis of that, they would actually design a specific production process. At what particular time the production process will begin, how much time will consume of this particular, how much time is required to the production process will be finished, how the production will continue, which are the sequence, and how the production process, the complete production process will be designed on this way. And in that way, the complete controlling system has been identified. So from the one process, this is the raw material will be input, then from the first process to second process, this type of additional raw material would be required, and at the last process, the finishing part of the process, which we require this type of things. So on this way, the whole process has been actually identified, the what type of raw materials has been required, and how the production process will consume, and how the laborers are actually put their inputs to convert these things and the continuing of this process. So this is the first part, that is the production control. Moving to the next point, that is operation tickets and a bill of material. Operation tickets and a bill of materials are very much important. Now, as I already mentioned in the first part, in the production control, the organization has been designed the whole structure and the production process. Now, on the basis of that, they will identify the list of materials, and they put the tickets of the respected materials, and it is to be sent to the material department and ask the material to be supplied to the respected job work. Now, here, on the basis of that list of materials and the tickets and the bills of materials, now they will actually start the process of work, and the respected process of the work would design in such a way that the material would actually ask on the basis of a requisitions. So, on the basis of a requisitions, material is actually supplied to the job work, and they gradually process on that particular material. Whenever, if the material has not been actually on the basis of the standard which requires and which designed by the respected job work, then the material returned back to the store department and asked to prepared and asked to send the same material which are actually asked specifically on the basis of a sample. Now, if the material is as per the sample, then the process has been started. Now, in that case, if they need any additional material or any additional work, any additional part of the requisitions, they need to put again the re-requisitions to the store department and ask the further material. So, in that sense, the operation tickets and the bill of materials would identify that how much amount of a material has been consumed by the particular job work, and in which way they were actually incurred the expenditures of the respective materials. So, this operation ticket and bill of materials would be helpful to identify the direct expenses and direct cost of material for the respected particular job work. Moving to the next point, that is the third point, that is effective time booking system. Fine. Effective time booking system would be helpful to identify the labor cost. Why the effective time booking system? There are many methods to identify the labor cost and the labor expenditures. It may be prepared the simple register where the laborers who are actually appointed to the respected job work, they can actually identify the amount of work or amount of time has been consumed or given to the respected job work. So, in that sense, whatever the time has been actually given by the respected laborers, they will actually write down in the respected ledgers, and on the basis of that, how much time has been actually given by the respected laborers, and calculated on the basis of that, what amount of wages to be paid to the laborers on an hourly basis, on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, or on a certain basis, it would be calculated as labor cost. So, effective time booking system would be actually helpful to the organization, how much time consumed by their laborers to convert this product into a finished product, or maybe to identify the finished products, and on the basis of that, they easily calculated the labor cost. So, effective time booking system would be helpful to calculate a labor cost, which is also a part of a direct expenses. Now, moving to the next point, that is effective time booking. After effective time booking system, the proper material issue. As I already said, the proper material issue, it means that the respected requirement of the material list has been designed earlier. earlier at the time of when the production control at the time of production control management has done, or maybe the organization is identified the which type of material is required. Now, for under this particular system or under particular this requirement, how the material has been actually supplied to the job work. There are many methods to supply the job work, maybe a LIFO method, maybe a FIFO method, simple average method, or a weighted average method. By the any of this method, the material has to be supplied to the job work. But here they need to identify that the which particular way the material has to be supplied to the job work, and on the basis of that the cost would be changed. So, in case of a FIFO method is always actually first in first out. So, it means that the cost would be actually calculated on the basis of whatever the cost has been incurred at the time of the purchase of raw material, the same cost would be incurred at the time of the manufacturing of a material. Now, in the case of a LIFO method, the last in material in the store department would be supplied to the job work first. So, in case of that, maybe if earlier the cost of raw material was very high, but at the time of supplying to the job work the raw material cost was very low, definitely it would be affected to the job work, the cost would be low. Why? Because of it was actually supplied to the job work last in first out. So, last in was the job raw material cost was very less, and because of that reason it impacts to the total cost of the job work, it is also less. In case of weighted average method, if the store department are already having a purchase 2-3 purchases in the last 2-3 days, they would identify the weighted average price, and weighted average, on the basis of that weighted average price, it would be supplied to the job work, and the price would be calculated on an average basis, and it would be affected to the job work on an average basis. So, any method can be applied by the organization which would be required by the organization, and if they design for their cost structure. So, this is what we are actually discussing in the fourth point, that is proper material issue. Next is appropriate overhead absorption rates. As I already mentioned that in job work or in a job costing, there are two types of major expenditures. One is a direct expenses, other one is indirect expenses. Direct expenses is always incurred for the respected job properly. It has not to be required to identify because of the material. The material is required for the respected job. It is to be allocated to the respected job on the basis of a material requisition slip. So, material cost is easily identified the respected job. Labor cost is also easily identified because of the person who are actually sitting on the machines to manufacture the job work one. The paid salary to this particular laborers would be directly concerned with the job work one. So, the labor cost is also easily identified. It means that the direct cost is easily identified for the respected job, but indirect expenses may not be easily identified. As I already mentioned that there are many expenditures are incurred for a whole business, the whole organization. It may be not incurred for the respected job 1, maybe 2 or maybe 3 or maybe X. So, in that sense they need to identify the what amount of overheads expenditures are incurred for the respected job, and for that they have one method to evaluate the how much proportionate expenses are incurred for the respected job, and that method is overhead recovery rates. So, on the basis of overhead recovery rates, they find out the proportionate expenses of the respected job and added into that particular job, and on the basis of that they would actually design their total amount of cost. So, overhead recovery rates would be helpful to calculate the overheads expenditures of the respected job. So, this is the fifth point. Then moving to the last point, that is cost centers. I just want to mention here that each job work is a cost center for the respected job. So, it means that suppose the job 1, job 2 and job 3 are there on an example. So, job work 1 is a cost center for job 1, the job work 2 is a cost center for job 2, and job work 3 is a cost center for job 3. So, it is very simple that the cost center is actually very identifiable for the particular job work. So, in that sense each job is actually a cost center for the respected job. This is what all about the requisites of a job work. Now, moving to the next point, and that is accumulation of cost. Now, see, for accumulation of cost I need to explain this chart. Before I want to explain this chart, I just want to tell you the accumulation of cost, as I already mentioned, that the basic 3 elements of cost. One is a material, second is labor, and third is overheads. All these 3 elements are very much affected to the job work. Even in any part of a costing methods or cost structures, these three elements are very much important. Now see the chart. In the accumulation of cost, if you are going to see the first part, there are 4 different expenditures: direct materials, direct labors, direct expenses and factory overheads. Including the factory overheads, which we can say the any part of overheads, but which we are actually taking a 2 important bifurcations. The first 3 are direct expenses. One is a direct expense, second is direct material, and the third is direct expenses. Sorry, the first one is a direct material and the third is direct expenses. All these 3 expenditures are incurred directly for the particular job work or a particular manufacturing unit. In that sense, these 3 expenditures are not necessary to identify whether it is incurred for job 1, job 2 or job 3. All these 3 expenditures are self-explanatory or self-designed, that these 3 expenditures are incurred for the respected job only. So now if you are prepared a job for the job 1, the identification of a material for the job 1 is a direct material expenses, and on the basis of that we can identify the how much material has been consumed by the job 1 through the material requisition. So now see, the direct material is actually identified through the material requisitions. Sorry. So in that sense, the material requisition is actually reflect the total amount of material consumed for the respected job. Now see the direct labor. In case of a direct labor, as I already discussed in the previous topic, that is requisites of job costing, the time booking system. Time booking system is actually identified the how much amount of labor cost incurred for the particular job work. How it would be identified? On the basis of number of hours. So same here, the direct labor would be identified on the basis of time. So now the how much time has been consumed by the different laborers and which wage system has been applied for the respected organization or for a respected job work, on the basis of that they will calculate the direct labor. So direct labor would be identified on the basis of time or a time consuming or a time booking system. Direct expenses, maybe other than the direct material or direct labor, there are other direct expenses which are incurred directly for the respected job work. If there are any direct expenses other than the material or labor, it would be directly affected to the respected job only, which are also a part of direct expenses. So now as per 2 parts, all direct expenditures are already incurred here, and on the basis of that all the 3 direct expenses comes to the accumulated and write down on the particular cost structure, and would be identified the total amount of cost and the total amount of the prime cost. So on the first basis of cost, as a prime cost, direct material, direct labor and direct expenditures are incurred. Now moving to the overhead parts, indirect expenses, the second part of the expenditures. Now on the basis of the factory overheads, if there are any factory expenditures are incurred respectfully for the particular job, or maybe the factory expenditures are incurred for a whole organization, it would be identified on the basis of overhead recovery rates. As I already mentioned in the earlier topic, that any part of overhead expenditures are incurred for the respected business or a respected organization, it would be distributed proportionately on the basis of overhead recovery rates, and then on the basis of overhead recovery rates would be identified the what amount of factory expenditures are incurred for the respected job would be added on the particular prime cost. It would be a factory cost or a work cost. After you identified the factory cost or work cost, as work in progress has been actually mentioned, that the work in progress, it means the work is still going on. It means the some processes are already done on the particular material, but the certain processes are remaining to find out the finished goods. So that is why it is considered as a work in progress, and now it transferred to the particular finished part. Now here, after the factory overheads has been added, the next part of expenditures is administration expense, that is admin expense, and selling and distribution expense. If there are any selling and distribution expense, as already it is prepared for a job work, it may be they are not going to sell their products to the particular require or needy people. They may be actually manufactured for the people who are actually having some requirement. So admin and selling and distribution expenses would be added here in the work cost or in a factory cost. It would be your cost of sale or a cost of production, and at last you can add a profit on that cost of production. You can identify your invoice price and selling price. So this is what all about accumulation of a cost. In the case of an accumulation of cost, you can design and you can identify identified your whole cost structure in the two parts, that is one is direct and then indirect, and the whole process has been actually done in this way as per this chart. So, now the accumulation of cost is actually calculated on this way. Moving to the next point, and that is the how to prepare the job cost sheet. Job cost sheet you can prepare in this way, that is the whole actually job cost work has to be identified first, and you have, as I already mentioned, there are many job or many processes has been actually going on in the organization. So, first you need to identify which job number and production order number is actually going on, then for which particular customer you are actually manufacturing this particular product, then you need to identify their date of the respected particular job work, then how much quantity you are manufacturing for the customers, when the job work is actually commenced, it starts, when the job work has actually finished the particular period. So, as per the beginning of the dates and the end of the dates, you can easily identify the how much period has been taken to finish this particular job work. Then the second part of the job cost sheet is the date, department, particulars, material, labor and overheads. It would be identified that on which date you were actually having a certain amount of material brought from the stores department as per the material requisition slip, as per the time booking system, how much actually labor cost has been incurred, and how many time has been consumed for the respected job. Overheads, how much proportionate overheads has been incurred for this job on the basis of the overhead recovery rates. And at last, the second part and the final part of the job cost sheet is the summary of the cost, which you are actually calculated on the basis of your requirement, that what was the estimated cost for the material, labor, overheads, and what was the actual cost. On the basis of the comparison of this estimated cost and actual cost, you maybe find out the differences, which is called variances, and on the basis of their variances, you just have an estimation that if there would be an estimation of the material cost is this much and actually it is incurred this much, and in that way the cost, if it is incurred more, then you have to identify how you can control the cost, and if your estimated cost is controlled on the basis of an actual cost, then you can have a simple calculation that you are working as per your control or as per your requirement, and that impact on your profitability, automatically it would shows your profitability is incurred because of your estimated cost is under control than the actual cost. So, this is the way to job cost is prepared. At last, the production manager and cost accountant is going to sign it, because of the production manager is actually having all production manager having an idea the whole process has been done in which way, and the cost accountant is actually having an idea how the cost has been incurred in the respected process. So, this is the way to calculated of the part of job cost sheet. So, in short, here we discussed the part of job cost and batch costing for the today's session and today's lecture. This is what all about I want to say for the job and batch costing. That's it. Thank you very much.
स्वाध्याय टीवी